Welcome to episode 6 of 30 Days of Persuasion Plays. Remember, everything I'm teaching you is straight out of the Persuasion playbook, which is coming soon. So keep your eyes peeled, pay attention. I'm going to be posting links to the videos pretty soon so you can get a copy of the Persuasion playbook and have all 30 techniques that I'm teaching you here, plus an additional 71 tactics, all right at your disposal so you can use them whenever you want. Today's lesson is that the more you know about the people that you intend to persuade, the more likely you are to persuade them. I talk about this at great length. I drill it. I hammer it home. Why? Because it's such an important point. This is the first step that I teach in my GRIPS method, which is to gather intelligence, reduce resistance, initiate control, position yourself, and sustain your position. I teach that in my program, Maverick Persuasion. Step number 1 is to gather intelligence about the people that you want to influence or persuade. You have to learn about them and know about them. This is not groundbreaking stuff that I'm telling you here. It's actually common sense that I cover in other videos. Today I want to give you some specific ways to actually do that. So step number 1 is to research your audience. So if you're in a situation where you're able to get preconceived knowledge about your audience, and when I say audience, that could be one person, it could be a million people. Whoever it is that you're intending to persuade, research them. 1 in 3 people have a social media account. Go on Instagram, go on Facebook, find out where they live, find out what their religious beliefs are, who their sports team favorites are, where they live, how many children they have, what kind of business they're in. And I want you to try to identify things that you have in common with them so that you can highlight those things, but more importantly, so you can refrain from talking about any differences that you might have with them. So if you realize that they like a different sports team than you, or they favor a different political party than you want to know what things to stay away from when you converse or interact with them. Second thing you want to do, so that's preconceived knowledge. That's what you do when you have the opportunity to actually sit down and research these people. Well, what happens if you find yourself in a situation where you're attempting to persuade someone and you didn't have the opportunity to acquire preconceived knowledge? So you just happen to bump into them, or maybe an opportunity presents itself. What you have to start doing now is paying attention to their verbal and their non-verbal clues. What are they saying verbally out of their mouth, and what are they doing non-verbally with their body language? Because those are instant clues that are going to tell you whether or not your message is resonating with them, and if you need to pivot or make a change or start to adapt in any way, shape, or form. But pay very close attention to what they're saying to you. And I know, again, that sounds like common sense, but I could tell you from somebody that's been studying influence, persuasion, human communication for over 20 years, only a very small percentage of people that I speak to genuinely listen to me when I talk to them. Very small percentage. I would say no more than 15% do it all of the time. Like every time I sit down and have a conversation with them, they are completely engaged and listening to what I'm saying. Even some of my closest friends, I start talking to them, they're like this, picking up their phones. They're not realizing that unconsciously they're telling me that they're not interested in what I have to say. And so I know when I see that, I got to make a pivot at some point. So you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the majority of people who don't listen, but instead just wait for their time to talk, and become someone that listens and pays attention, if not for anything else, so you can gather some intelligence on the people that you're talking about, but more importantly, so you can separate yourself from the rest of the people that aren't giving them their undivided attention. And the last tip, this is a more advanced tip. It's an NLP tip, which involves discovering their meta programs. So meta programs are these programs that we have that often in our minds that often dictate the way that we make decisions. And there are a lot of different meta programs. I'm going to give you some of the basic ones, which once I reveal them to you, you'll think to yourself, okay, that makes sense because you'll probably be able to relate to them. So the first one is the towards or away meta program. And basically what that tells us is that people that utilize that meta program make their decisions either by trying to get closer to something or trying to get away from something. So here's an example. If you are trying to sell something to somebody that is going to make them money. So maybe you're trying to sell them a real estate investment, a house that they're going to potentially flip. And they're already qualified, they have the credit, they have the funds, they have the money to do the renovation. So that's not the issue. The issue is not whether or not they can afford it or whether or not they have the resources to actually do it. The issue is whether or not they're actually going to make the decision to do it, right? And so in talking to that person, you realize that the reason why they want this extra money is so that they can put it towards their kid's child college fund, their kids' college fund, so that they have enough money to send their kids to college in 20 years from now, right? Or maybe you're having a conversation with a different client and they reveal to you that they somehow got into $50,000 worth of credit card debt. So maybe you're talking to a guy, he tells you, you know what, I didn't realize my wife had a shopping problem. She went to Macy's and she burned through $50,000 in credit card debt and I want to pay it off, and that's what I'm going to use this money for. So we have two different aspects there. We have one person that's working towards something and we have another person that's trying to get away from something. Second thing is, do they utilize the meta program of possibility versus necessity? So again, there are some people that will act, say yes, comply, decide to buy, invest their money, say yes, I will do this, make the decision to comply with you because of the necessity, meaning that they feel that they need to do it in order to resolve some sort of pain or to fix something. Versus people that don't necessarily have that urgency, but they're looking at the possibilities. They're looking at what's possible in their lives, what their possible future could look like. So you have to identify that in a person. Are they acting out of necessity or are they acting out of possibility? And then the third one is the meta program of self versus other. So are they making the decision to satisfy something within themselves, or are they making the decision to satisfy something in somebody else? Maybe a friend, a family member, son, daughter, whatever. These are simple things that if you pay attention, like I told you in tip number 1, to what they're telling you verbally, you'll be able to pick up on the type of meta program that they're using. If you want to learn more about meta programs, you can check out my training program, Paramount NLP, where I cover meta programs in detail. But again, to recap, research your audience, learn a little bit about them, pay attention to the verbal and the non-verbal clues, discover their meta programs, and tailor your presentation according to them.